I'd like to think that everyone who comes into showbiz wants to create quality content, but that hasn't stopped terribly made films from becoming the low-hanging fruits of the movie industry. There can be any number of reasons, from production woes to bad scripts that contribute towards an actor's distaste for their own films. And more, actors have spoken up over the years about the films they kind of hated working in. So, I've curated a list of the top 10 examples for you. Here we go. Despite its popularity, the Twilight franchise was far from immune to hatred. Making fun of sparkling vampires was a favorite teenage pastime not too long ago, and Twilight trolls had the resounding support of none other than Edward Cullen himself.
So, you don't like the guy?
Our Pats has said several memorable things about the vampire flick on the record that don't exactly count as ballads of praise. And one of his wildest interviews was the time he said that he had stolen his dignity back while retiring from Twilight. Yeah, ouch. Years later, Robert tried to take some of his unhinged hate comments back by appreciating what an incredible platform the Twilight franchise was to his acting career. Now that Pattinson is counting down to the ultimate role of his life, the actor seems to have adopted a humbled view, not to mention that we're living in a time which liking Twilight is considered tasteful in like a non-ironic way. But let's make a quick move on to the examples waiting for us up ahead instead of slipping down that slope of a topic. If anyone deserves to be called the guardian of action movies, that person is most definitely Sylvester Stallone. Besides voicing Rambo in Mortal Kombat 11, the actor's been working on the directorial cut of Rocky IV as well as a new superhero film. And even though his name is permanently attached to the Rocky and Rambo personas, there are a few regrets lurking in the shadow of Stallone's iconic movies. Stop or My Mom Will Shoot is one of them, and boy does he hate it. Stop or My Mom Will Shoot sounds like one of those old films with a lot of ironic appreciation potential. What it turned out to be was a poorly written buddy movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger apparently pretended to like so that Sylvester would come on board.
He immediately called him and says, "Look, whatever it takes, I do the movie."
It seems like Stallone took the bait and got back at the film over the next few years by frequently trolling it in creative ways. When the head of Warner Brothers sends out a call for a Batman film, no actor can say no. As this next example will prove, George Clooney is hardly an exception to that rule. George has been candid about how thrilled he was to sign on as a member of the Batman and Robin cast when he got the call from Warner Brothers. But the film was not a huge success despite having talent like Uma Thurman, Chris O'Donnell, and Alicia Silverstone alongside Clooney. It currently stands at an 11% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And if that didn't cue you in on the quality of the film, George Clooney himself can. Clooney openly confessed in 2011 that he wasn't happy with either his performance or the film and thought them to be bad. That said, the Michael Clayton actor was also vocal about how important Batman and Robin was as his movie career breakthrough. What's interesting is that Batman and Robin hasn't been the only movie on George Clooney's hit list. The actor took a pot shot at the return of the Killer Tomatoes during the 2012 Oscar Roundtable, calling it a crappy film that he acted in just to make money.
I've done really shitty movies or jobs when I was broke. Sure. And they're like, why did you do Return of the Killer Tomatoes? Which I did.
Clooney can say whatever he likes about Return of the Killer Tomatoes, but there's no denying the movie's huge cult following. With the Batfleck gearing up to make a return to the screen, it would do well to remember the film that pushed Ben Affleck to play Batman in the first place. It was the 2003 movie called Daredevil, based on the story of the Marvel vigilante who fought crime on the streets of New York. Although not counted as one of Affleck's finest performances, the actor has claimed to have used his Daredevil role as motivation to do a better job in Batman vs. Superman. And while everyone may not agree with calling Ben's portrayal of Batman a karmic vindication for Daredevil, we can give him some props for striving to serve the patrons of cinema a little better. Friendships can translate into remarkable collaborations in the Hollywood industry. Unfortunately for actor Sally Fields and her amazing Spider-Man director Laura Ziskin, this was just not the case. The reboot franchise has always drawn criticism from Spidey fans, who have later embraced Tom Holland and his somersaults with open arms. Without going into too much detail, Sally contributed to this criticism by calling the film out for its lack of dimensional character. Playing Andrew Garfield's aunt on the silver screen is not everyone's cup of tea, and in Sally's case, she was doing it as a favor to her longtime friend Laura.
Come with me if you want to live.
Unless she stars in a more epic role, Emilia Clarke stands at risk of perpetually being known as Daenerys Targaryen.
Dracarys.
but Emilia would still choose to be the mother of dragons a million times over her act in Terminator Genisys. Clarke was candid about the tension on the sets of the film and said that she saw director Alan Taylor get quote-unquote shoot up while working on it. The film had such a bad rap that the Fantastic Four actors working on the neighboring sets made jackets that said, "At least we're not on Terminator." Despite its critical failures, Arnold Schwarzenegger's work in the Terminator reboot was appreciated, and the movie made a moderate turnover. There were narratives in the making for 2 more Terminator sequels and a congruent TV series, but the overall underperformance of Genisys put them on hold indefinitely. Sir Michael Caine is a British icon with a sprawling career of more than 6 decades.
Not before the others, not after the others, with the bloody others!
Caine has acted in more than 130 films in his lifetime, including Nolan's Batman titles, and has no intention of stopping now, at the age of 87. Michael's contribution to cinema has earned him a knighthood, but that doesn't rescue some of his films from the jaws of bad quality. I'll give you a second to shake off that pun before I hit you with some delectable Jaws trivia. Jaws: The Revenge, or Jaws 4, is by far the most imaginative installment of the series. It had its ending revised to detonate its great white shark. Oh, and it won a Raspberry Award for the worst visual special effects in a film. Jaws 4 is sometimes called an enjoyable bad film, even if the reviewer Robert Ebert once wrote that it was not simply a bad movie, but also a stupid and incompetent one. This doesn't really mean much for Caine since he plays a smaller role in the movie, but that has not stopped him from clarifying that he's never even seen the film. Channing Tatum's on-screen magic might be difficult to forget, but he'd like you to try to do that in the case of G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra, because that's how much the talented actor hates the movie, which he was forced to act in because of a 3-picture deal. Tatum was an up-and-coming actor when he signed the ill-fated contract, and as it so often happens with actors, he wanted to pursue meatier roles by the time it hit production. Despite not liking how the G.I. Joe installment turned out, Channing hasn't let it be forgotten that he is grateful for the experience. To the film's credit, there are some commendable chase sequences in its over-the-top action and a few decent stunts, and since director Stephen Sommers delivers it with the intensity of the Mummy movies he helped create, The Rise of Cobra isn't an altogether bad film for people who dig that kind of stuff. Daredevil made it to this list only once, but it gave birth to the spin-off that dragged Jennifer Garner onto this list.
Remember me?
After playing Matt Murdock's love interest in Daredevil, Garner landed a leading role in her own character spin-off called Elektra, and Jennifer told a friend that she wasn't very fond of the film, which she was bound by law to complete due to a contract. Garner's Elektra made a comeback to life in the film after getting killed in Daredevil, and went rogue as she tried to come to terms with her mother's death. It's not surprising that the film didn't fare well, and Avi Arad even confessed that Marvel Studios had made a mistake by rushing its production. Despite being forced into it, Jennifer's portrayal of the Marvel character didn't go unappreciated. The movie, however, is more or less forgettable. Other than playing a crude version of himself in Silicon Valley, TJ Miller has starred in several choice projects as per his own account.
That's emoji. You know, it's the turd with the smiling face and the eyes. I thought it was chocolate yogurt for so long.
And one of them is the Emoji Movie, which the actor seemed to have signed on to just because it sounded edgy. It was the most hated release of 2017, but to its credit, Emoji Movie is the only project bold enough to make its own smileys and pass them off as the iconic emojis. After the movie received a lukewarm response at the very best, Miller tried to clean his act using strange analogies. In an interview with Forbes, the Silicon Valley actor channeled a bit of his famous Bachman pizzazz when he advised his critics to check it. And by it, I mean his IMDb score. Yeah, I'm being serious, this is real. Miller offered his IMDb ratings as a counter-argument in support of his acting talents while admitting that people hated him in the film. He also tried to validate his acting chops by saying that he had movies and a book in the making. That's nice, hey, good for him. But bear in mind that this is the same guy who narrowed down the reason for his Silicon Valley exit down to a social mission.
At least we can all agree on that.
That might bring an end to today's video, but the list of actors who hated their own movies could go on and on. James Franco thinks Your Highness sucks. Kelly Clarkson has never had nice things to say about From Justin to Kelly, and Charlize Theron counts Reindeer Games as one of her least favorite movies. And although she doesn't particularly hate them, Miriam Margolyes, aka Professor Sprout, has no interest in the Harry Potter movies. At the end of the day, these actors just represent people who were not happy doing a job but pulled through anyway, and that's the only note that I'd like to end this video on. So happy streaming to you folks. I hope you liked this video, and for more Screen Rant updates, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. See ya!